are chased on the streets within a short time without proper sensitization, without proper alternatives, will that be a better country? Will they be able to trade under the circumstances which give them an opportunity to flourish? Our take is, as a party, is that it is true we want an orderly city, but also we must respect the human rights. We must respect the business rights of these individuals who have been trading there. Now, to ask them to leave overnight and to use crooked, wicked and brutal ways of evicting them, I'm sure that most of them have lost their property. They have been evicted under unclear circumstances. And so our take is that KCCA should offer better alternatives, affordable alternatives. Now, to ask a street vendor whose capital could be about 100,000, to ask him to go and rent space somewhere in a market which is very expensive. Across the entire world, when you go to New York, there are street vendors. There are no cities in this world where people do not vend things. What we only need to do is to structure the way that street vending must be done. For example, we can allocate time, we can allocate days and spaces where the street vendors can be able to trade with dignity. Because if you are sending someone to Chira, if you are sending them to Boyogere or Lugazi, wherever you are sending them, the things that you quickly ask yourself is access to markets. We should ask ourselves, why in the first place are the street vendors in the heart of Kampala? It is because there is opportunity. And so this is a governance issue. As DF, we have been talking about federating as a country. Now, to centralize Uganda's economy in Kampala and Wakiso is part of the problem. If you centralize everything in Kampala, so Kampala is the most attractive place in Uganda. Rather than trying to centralize everything, this unitary form of government, we can address this at a governance level by federating as a country, the regional cities, the regional, the 16 sub-regions that went to Lancaster to discuss. We can decide to decentralize most of these activities, decentralize business, so that many spaces and places are attractive across the country. So when you see millions or thousands of street vendors here, it is because opportunities are largely 90% of Uganda's economy is in Kampala, Wakiso, Entebbe, Mukono. And this is a problem of this country. So we should be able to address that. So trying to chase them without understanding the whole challenge, the spaces, we should give them time. They should be sensitized. They should be allowed an opportunity to go through a process. Otherwise, to wake up and give a 2 weeks ultimatum is unfortunate. This is not how life is led. Life, we must plan. We must, as a government, as DF, we must execute plans. Not waking up in the morning and saying, from today we do not want street vendors. And this is unfortunate for most of us as a country. We are together with the street vendors. They may have their challenges, but we are for their rights. We are for their business rights, and their business and economic rights that they must have. Every Ugandan must be given an opportunity to become economically productive. And these are things that we keep talking about. That can we make Ugandans more productive? What this is going to do is that there is going to be an increase in the crime rate. And of course, as usual, this government is full of espionage. They will use espionage, they will use brutality. And this does not solve the problem of the people who are suffering economically. The other issue, of course, along economics, that this economy is run by a few people. It's run by a few people in Uganda. And so an economy which is only for the few puts us at a disadvantage. So by and large, I would rather that we sit down, a structured manner of addressing this problem, sit down to plan, engage the stakeholders of the street vendors, organize the street vendors. They need to be organized properly into some form of associations or whatever, that they can be organized. And then we engage at that level structurally in an organized manner. We believe in doing things in an orderly manner. So now, if you may ask who has lost what where, nobody can account. There is no accountability. We don't know how much property has been lost. We can't account for the brutality. We can't account for anything. And we put government on the spotlight to be able to give us an accountability, how many street vendors have been there, how many property has been lost, whatever, because we need an accountability as a party. And so this is our starting place. that for us we are looking at, and we want to make sure that everything is smooth, the city is organized, but without necessarily abusing the rights of others to participate economically.
SCCA has a policy of confiscating those
goods and items. It would deter. It's a sort of a deterrence, but again, I think it's a colonial way. It's a brutal way. It is an imperialistic way of implementing deterrence. For me, rather than capturing things and taking them, impounding the things of the traders, it is good to explore methods which are attractive, methods which do not make street vendors want to trade here. Again, I've talked about the governance issue. So KCCA must devise means. I don't agree that capturing someone's goods, that is already theft in my own understanding. When you capture my goods, so what happens to the goods? Who takes them? Where do you take them? These are all questions. Where do you take these goods? Do you just leave them there? Do they rot there? Do they get spoiled there? Or do some people... These are some of the drivers of corruption. And you have seen the corruption with some of these officials. For someone to get their goods, they must go through some form of corruption. And so, for me, I think we do not want to provide avenues for people to have corruption. We should provide avenues for people not to be corrupt. And so, this issue of street vendors requires a comprehensive policy. It requires a comprehensive understanding, and the trading policy, the city trading policy, needs to be reviewed. As of now, it is clear it has failed. It is clear that it is not working, and so we need to devise means. We need to sit down and structure policies which can allow people to trade in the city with dignity again. With dignity, but also to allow many people to be able to trade. Otherwise, with the rising cost of rent in this city, the rising costs of spaces in the city, we can look at many places where traders can, for example, be able to trade. There are some spaces and places which can be gazetted for street vendors. For me, I wouldn't have a problem with that. So an opportunity to gazette some of these spaces. Today we are in Panafric here. It's some bit of space I can see. And there are many other spaces that we can look at, which can be gazetted on a timely basis, like I said. For example, in terms of space and time. If we can't allow them during the day, we can allocate a specific day. We can allocate a specific time. Again, agreeable, where everybody must survive. We must all survive. Everybody needs a form of a livelihood. So we cannot curtail people's opportunities by being so brutal like this. No, this country, it all belongs to all of us.
Should these street vendors be relocated somewhere else, or they should move out of the city completely?
Now, to where? You understand? The question is, have you prepared someone to where? Supposing some of their families are here, what are you asking them to do? To leave their places of habitation? To where? Do you have a plan? I think for me, to relocate is a plan that someone needs to go through. It's not something you can do overnight, that you can just leave. Even if it is you now, they tell you leave and go where now? To where? So I think the question should be a systematic process which allows our people to be able to engage again economically without necessarily overnight telling them to leave. Now, you are causing a hullabaloo, you are causing fracas in the city by saying tomorrow no street vendors. And so overnight people's livelihoods have been destroyed, people's families and social structures have been destroyed. We need to be considerate about all this. We are here, we are no longer under the British rule. We are here and governing ourselves, and we must be considerate about the individuals, the Ugandans who are struggling in their daily struggles. We must identify with their daily struggles, not necessarily by chasing them away. I think for me, to relocate is a process. It's not something that we can do overnight, but however, we must create spaces for them. The city planners must be thinkers. The technical people must be thinkers. They must think through, how do we accommodate these people? It's not just waking up and say, go away. We need to think. We need to be able to think through and benchmark. These technical people and other people who travel out of the countries, what are we benchmarking? What are we benchmarking in Europe? What are we benchmarking in New York and America and other cities? What are we benchmarking? Like I earlier on stated, every city has street vendors.